Guys, we have to talk about these viewership numbers. It is mental. Like, they are insane viewership numbers. During NFL Sunday, in the year of our Lord 2024, where all TV ratings are down, by the way, all TV ratings are down, and there's not the initial super hype. We have to see this like the first few years of the WNBA. And also, again, the 90s just had higher TV ratings in general. There was no Netflix, there was no YouTube, there was no all this other stuff to, there was no watching highlights, full game highlights immediately after the game, which I wonder how many highlight views the full game freaking highlights have. Hundreds of thousands anyway. But at the same time, it is still outpacing games from like 2003, 2004, 2005 when like people were talking about, oh, the league was still huge. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously the viewership numbers were there. The relevance of the league, yeah, it still would have been like, it's a lot more relevant than it is now outside of Caitlin Clark. But like, no individual player, maybe the league might have been bigger, no individual player has gone to this. And by the way, for everyone talking about the growth of the league and all this stuff, and it's not just Caitlin Clark, there is one big problem. They drew in over 500,000 more views than every other game combined. You can't tell me there are Connecticut Sun fans. There are more than 25,000 Connecticut Sun fans. I think the vast majority of people watched the Aces, or they watched the Seattle-Vegas game. Or not even the Seattle-Vegas game. Seattle-Vegas game was on at a good time. Not 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Western time. It was on at a good time. And in fairness, the Aces and the Liberties do have some fans. The Aces and the Liberty, without question, do have fans. So, you're looking at Phoenix, Minnesota, which was ironically the best game of the day. Was the least viewed game of the day. But all in all, you had what? 1.274 million? 1.275 million. 1.27. Like, over 500,000 more people watched the Fever and the Sun than watched every other game. And a lot of people were like, oh, the numbers are still slightly up on last year. The numbers are slightly up on the first round of playoffs last year. It's like, yeah, it's on ESPN. It's at ESPN2. Which is kind of mad. Which is really mad. Like, I would have thought, because throughout the regular season, we did see a lot of the... Like, we saw a lot of the games in the season getting more and more, like, viewership than other years. We saw that. Like, we saw an increase in viewership across the board. But, like, obviously they hadn't had to compete with NFL Sunday. They hadn't had to compete with that. They hadn't had to compete with the NFL games. And clearly, the other games couldn't do it. Maybe they did slightly better than last year, but they couldn't really compete. Whereas the Fever, like, yes, the Fever did not outcompete NFL games. But apparently in Indiana, it had like 30% of the viewers of the Colts. Which again, you might be saying, oh, but it's only 30% of American football. This is the WNBA. At the same time, 30% of people in Indiana chose to watch the Fever over the Colts. And I get it. I actually kind of get the American football thing. Because, like, again, the games mean more. And they play once a week. And it's kind of like it's a cultural thing. Like, it's a cultural thing to go meet up, have game watching parties, to watch the game, to have the game on no matter what. It is a cultural thing. It is not a cultural thing to watch WNBA basketball during NFL season. And 1.84 million people on average, decided to do that. Like, that is insane. Absolutely insane numbers. And you've got to just say, like, it is good for the league. I wish the eye poke didn't happen. Because if it didn't happen, like, I still think the Sun win that game and win it comfortably. As much as I do think Caitlin was affected by the eye poke, like, DeWanna Bonner did a good job defensively on her. I thought Carrington did a good job defensively on her at times. I thought Mabry shot the lights out. I thought DeWanna Bonner was good. I thought Carrington on the offensive end was aggressive. I thought Alyssa Thomas controlled a lot of the game. She actually hit some shots, which she very rarely does. She hit that, like, push, the Bill Cartwright kind of, I don't even know if I'm not going to call it a shot put, but, like, you know how you shoot when you're, like, you know those, like, machines that you shoot on Obviously, she's a torn labrum, so she has to shoot like this. But you know the like arcade machines shooting where no one ever follows through. It's like most people, obviously the pros just are scooping them, but most people are just kind of like throwing it in like that. Or when you're throwing paper into a bin. Again, most people aren't going to follow through unless you're doing it for show. Most people kind of like try to toss it in. That's how she shoots the ball. But she was making them. Like that was, I'm going to say it, I have described it as puke basketball. And I stand by my opinion of calling it puke basketball. But that's not necessarily a knock on the Connecticut Sun. That's how they play basketball. The way they play basketball is drag you down to their game, and they're better at their game than anyone else. And the Indiana Fever, what they're really good at is dragging you down to their game, or making you play their game and turning it into a shootout. That's how the Indiana Fever have won a lot of games, is they win a lot of shootouts. And then there are some times where it's like the other team just can't do it. Which is what happens when your defense is leave them open and pray they miss. It happened against the Seattle Storm when they won that game. It happened like post-Olympics. They obviously had a shootout with Dallas. So I think good teams they beat post-Olympic break. Like I know against the Sky they just left them open and eventually they cooled down. Was the Storm the only good team to beat post-Olympic break? I think it might actually be. And like even against the Mercury. Like I saw them running off Taurasi in the corner, running off Cat Copper, and they nearly blew a 30-point lead. But yeah, that's an interesting one. And again, imagine if this was like the Fever and the Lynx. Look, I think the Fever still have a chance in this series. I don't think the Fever would have had a chance against the Lynx. I think the Lynx just would have had too much for them. So in a way, I'm glad the series happened. But if you're going to get swept anyway, at least get swept to a team that plays fun basketball. Like the Lynx ball movement is incredible. The way they ping the ball around, the way everyone moves on that team, the way they cut. They would have cooked us, but like we would have also got ours as well. It wouldn't have been a game where, in fairness, they hit shots, but it wouldn't have been just that boring brand of basketball. Two teams would have went at it, and it would have been a 15-point win for the Lynx, but it would have been more fun. But yeah, the next game tomorrow is going to be interesting. Everyone's saying like, oh, the viewers are gonna be gone. They got killed. Nah. This is a do or die game for Caitlin Clark. This could be the last Caitlin Clark game of the season. I can guarantee you it gets more than 2 million views, especially because it's not compete with the NFL. I can guarantee you it gets more than 2 million views. So anyway, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And do you guys think that there's a chance they win? Like, look, I am currently watching the Atlanta Dream up 3 late in the third against the New York Liberty. I'm telling you, anything can happen.